This is the news conference where Hakeem Jeffries has the now infamous, leverage comment. There's the title. There's the date it was posted. The problem with this is the Democrats are being drug around by the Republicans. And he says that in so much here. But if he understood and he could count, a 2/3 majority the Republicans do not have. And any aspect of the law that drags them into a 2/3 majority vote is the leverage that you have. Ding dong. He's supposed to be an attorney. He don't know how to think. It's simple. Let's find something where the Republicans don't have a majority. And that would be Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, call for the vote on anything where Trump has violated Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. You set it up properly, and they have a sample. They have a sample of how to file a resolution to trigger the bar to office as a final disqualification, because the Supreme Court said it could be done at any time. So here's what he said.
I appreciate the question, Kevin, but I'm trying to figure out what leverage we actually have. What leverage do we have? Republicans have repeatedly lectured America. They control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. It's their government. What leverage do we have?
It's not their constitution, though.
We are going to try to find bipartisan common ground on any issue. We will work with anyone in this town to get things done for the American people, to lower the high cost of living, secure the border, and...
How about just removing Trump? Work with anybody who sends you the information on how to remove Trump. Let's see what happens. Faxes have been sent. Let's see what happens. Because Jeffries is full of it. Jeffries is full of it. Raskin is full of it. Schumer is just too old. The whole Democratic shoe is got a big hole in the bottom. The issue is very simple. They screwed up on January 6th. Nobody did their homework. They didn't realize Trump was constitutionally ineligible. Nobody apparently knows how to read an order. He's supposed to be an attorney. He couldn't read the order from the Supreme Court. It basically said, yes, Trump is constitutionally ineligible. It's up to Congress to disqualify him at the time of the vote. All you have to do is vote. The time of counting the electoral votes. Nope. They're scared. They're scared of Trump supporters. They don't want to get shot. They want to get killed. That's what this is all about. Now, let's just listen to a few more minutes. You can see this is 8 minutes into a 26-minute news conference. And these comments have now gone viral. Doesn't know what to do.
Keep our communities safe while defending dreamers, farm workers, and families at the same time. We have repeatedly made that clear.
This is where the American people are sick and tired of you and your bouncing hands and your bullshit about for the American people. How about just enforcing the Constitution? It's just that simple. Now, here, let's hear what John Boniface has to say about what he's saying. That clip is next. This is John Boniface on Jessica Denson's Lights On show, talking about Hakeem Jeffries not knowing what to do. There's a URL up at the top. You can stop at the ampersand t equals 110, which is where it jumps to where he's talking about this. There's the full title, and there's the date that it was posted. Now, what he's saying is Hakeem Jeffries, in his fluster, is stupid. He's not thinking. If you're going to get a job where, there are certain aspects of the job you need to learn it. The Constitution, if you're going to support and defend it, you need to learn it. Section 3 of the 14th Amendment is the police section for government of the Constitution. It was put in there after the Civil War, where they obviously were going to need to police people who were trying to sneak back in to wreck the government from the inside. Well, that's what's going on today. The real issue is very simple. Hakeem Jeffries is supposed to be a lawyer. If he can't read that order of Trump v. Anderson from the Supreme Court for exactly what it says, then he needs to resign. Because it doesn't say that legislation needs to be created before Section 3 of the 14th Amendment can be used. It says states cannot use it. It also says Congress can use it. Congress can enforce it. It also says that Congress has done so in the past. And they're trying to tell Congress that you are the ones who need to stop Trump. Well, they sat there with their fingers up their butt, and now we got Trump in the White House. Now they're talking about impeaching him. No, that's not the right way.
Jeffrey said the other day that he didn't know what kind of leverage he had. He said, as you may have heard, he said the Republicans, they control the Congress, they control the White House, they control the courts, and so he says openly, I don't know what leverage he has. He has the Constitution. He has his own power there, not to mention that he's the senior member of the caucus, but he's also a member of Congress individually who can introduce articles of impeachment as a privileged resolution and force a floor vote.
Now, it's not articles of impeachment. A simple resolution to force a floor vote as a privileged resolution on the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment vote, identifying the conduct that's been violated. He's just not thinking that way. But I know that many members of Congress have been told how this works, and either they simply don't believe it or they won't understand it. Those who are not attorneys, I can't blame them. They're stupid. This is why we should not let people who don't have law degrees run for an office of a lawmaker. That's just an oxymoron. Why don't you just put somebody on the judicial bench who just, by popular vote, goes there? We'd end up with a Trump on the bench. That's why you need to be trained in the law before you can go making laws or enforcing laws. You can't enforce a law that you know you have a duty to enforce, and you don't even know what a duty to enforce or see to the faithful execution of the law means. So here's what he says.
And take stock of who's going to stand up for the Constitution now and who's not. Congressman Al Green is to be commended for being the first to step forward and make that demand. But he should not be alone. There are many other members of Congress who say they believe in the Constitution, who are now saying we're in this constitutional crisis. Go stand with Congressman Green and demand that the impeachment process be used.
100%, John.
Except it'll never work. It'll never work. You're wasting time. You go down the wrong path, you're wasting time. This is what happens when you get a non-lawyer like Jessica Denson, who's just going to sit there and say, absolutely, 100%. You don't even know what you're talking about. Strategically, you don't. How do you win the game of chess when you don't know how to play the game? Impeachment is a fool's errand. Not going to happen. Whereas a privileged resolution based on Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, of which they have already been sent a sample copy, basically disqualifies Trump immediately. If they refuse to bring it to the floor, that's the same as a no vote. If they bring it to the floor and he doesn't meet the 2/3 in both houses, first of all, he has to make 2/3 in the House of Representatives. If he doesn't make 2/3 in the House of Representatives, it ends there. There's no sense in having it voted on in the Senate. He's disqualified. It's that simple. Stop making it into way more than it is. Now, you can see that this was at the very end of Jessica's interview. She spends a whole lot of time just on a whole lot of nothing. And that's what these YouTube content creators do. They want to yappity, 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 yappity. And none of them can cite the law or ask people to interpret the law. What does this mean? Can we do that? You know, pull out the Trump v. Anderson's ruling and go through it and say, well, what does this mean and what does that mean? Doesn't this say he's automatically constitutionally ineligible? Isn't that the language that they're using? How does he get from that to disqualified? Very simple. This vote that Boniface is talking about, but not for impeachment. A resolution on Section 3, the 14th Amendment, called for the disability vote. You can find it at sadpac.com. All it takes is one member to file it. Then we're going to see how many Republicans, well, all the Republicans are going to support Trump, but then we'll see how many Democrats support Trump. This is Ezra Klein. He is summing up the entire Trump administration and Congress issue here. There's the URL at the top, and there is the title, Non-Player Congress Problem. And there is the date it was posted. Now, I'm only going to play just the introduction because you need to actually go view this whole thing yourself. Basically, what Klein is saying is the Republicans are cartoon characters. They are not living in reality, and they don't know how to. He's basically saying they're children who are cartoon characters.
A few years back, the online right became enamored of a new epithet for liberals. NPC, short for non-player character.
Non-playable character.
Non-player character.
What, you don't know about this? Do I get to tell you the NPC means?
Yes.
This is the most important meme of our lifetime.
The term was lifted from video games, where an NPC refers to the computer-controlled characters that populate the game while you, the live player, make actual decisions. NPCs don't have minds of their own. They don't have agency. They're automatons. You might have seen these memes. Featureless gray faces, sometimes surrounded by liberal icons. Elon Musk loved posting them. Liberals in this story thought what they were allowed to think, said what they were allowed to say.
And you get the point. Go watch this, because he's, as the British say, he's spot on. This is Jake Bro making a point about how our politics have changed, because today politics is not what the word means, which is polite influencer. politics is turned into a social media lie fest. And I don't mean lie down, I mean as in untruth. There's the URL at the top. You can stop at the ampersand t equals 780 seconds s, because that's where it's going to jump to. Jake Bro is, in case you don't know, has been following the Ukraine war since its inception. He does daily, well, regular updates on what's going on in Ukraine by pulling together various news sources and tries to predict things. He's been unusually kind to Trump, thinking that Trump was going to perhaps be kind to Ukraine. Trump indicates that he wants oil and gas and the rare earths, meaning the minerals of Ukraine, and then maybe he would continue military aid. But Trump doesn't understand that the oil and gas and those minerals are in the very area that Russia claims to be there, so which Trump would, give in the negotiation concessions. So it's typical Trump stupidity. And Jake Bro says he's 40 years old. Okay, for someone who's 70, we know a lot more. Many people knew that the war started because of those minerals and oil and gas. In 2014, Russia invaded specifically because Exxon, Shell, and Mobil at that time, Exxon and Mobil were separate at that time, had cut contracts with Ukraine to develop those oil and gas resources and put them on the European market. That would have cut into Russia's oil and gas market coming through Ukraine. And Putin decided he wasn't going to have that. But he went and told a bunch of lies about NATO and a whole lot of other stuff that act like it mattered to him. And no one, for the 3 years that the Ukraine-Russia war has been going on, nobody has been clear on that is exactly why Putin invaded. Putin doesn't care about democracy as much as he wants that oil and gas, because he doesn't want Ukraine becoming an oil and gas. It would be a competitor to Russia. They also want Crimea back because that's where the ports were that Russia could access, and there's a big naval yard there that Russia was using, and Ukraine has been the brain of Russia. It's where all the high-tech stuff comes from, the space program, the aircraft manufacturers, the military manufacturers, heavy equipment, that kind of stuff. The industrial complex was in Ukraine. Those are the people with the brains. That's why the Ukrainians are beating the Russians, because they're much more intelligent people. They are descendants of the Romans more so than of the Neanderthals. The Russians are descendants of the Neanderthals, and that is because people say that the Neanderthals went extinct. They did not. What happened was there was a huge volcanic eruption in lower Europe. It's killed off many of the Neanderthals because of the darkness. Nothing grew. They were hunter-gatherers. They couldn't find food. They couldn't move fast enough, but those who did move, moved east and north. Then the Romans came in and literally drove them across the river, the Dnipro River, into what is now the Moscow area, which at that time was swampland and it was undesirable. The Romans wanted to keep the farmland and what have you not that was in Ukraine. I mean, anybody can, dig up the history on this, but, history is a funky thing. If you don't look for it, you won't find it. The Neanderthals always have been thieves. They aren't smart, so they just look for things to make them go. They look for whatever they can steal, to make their lives better. They're hunter-gatherers, whereas the Romans were engineers. So enough on that. Listen to what Jake Bro has got to say about today's politics.
They put out press releases and make statements and gather in front of the cameras to say they oppose this, and I'll just share a little bit of this clip.
Okay, hi everybody. Don't you wish for the old Mitch McConnell days when they had shorter Q&A? Okay, so.
A fuddy-duddy old fool, isn't he? That's the issue, and that's what Jake is about to say.
Yeah, they like questions. But so in his first 3 weeks in office, Donald?
The title of this video is Trump Cannot Bulldoze His Way Through the Rule of Law. And we have an elderly Jewish man with, like the drop-down reading glasses, reading a statement off a piece of paper. This is why you in Canada feel like there's no opposition in the United States. What Chuck Schumer...
You don't see Jake Bro rub his head like that often. He's truly disgusted with the Democrats.
Schumer is doing is what you were supposed to do as a political opposition leader in the 1980s, the 1990s, even the 2000s. You put out a statement, the media picks it up, Americans consume that media, and then they form their opinions. But that's not what's happening today. People do not get their news and they do not form their opinions from mass media anymore. Corporate media, legacy media is dead. People...
Now, there's Brian Tyler Cohen's page. He was no more than a receptionist and tried to become an actor. He came here from Pennsylvania. And his claim to fame initially was he wore that shark skin suit and looked and talked like he was a lawyer and is always dealing with legal matters. He managed to get lawyers on his show so that he wasn't giving legal advice, but he was playing like he was a lawyer. And he happened to look like another guy who is a lawyer, Legal Eagle, that he came across as credible. But really, he's an idiot.
And they form their opinions from their favorite influencers on social media. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. So the opposition is not Chuck Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries. Those people are placeholders for power. The real pushback, the real communication, the real battle for America right now is being led by social media influencers, which I guess I am one. That was not my objective, guys, but here we are. Keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy. I'm part of this fight. So the biggest social media influencers on the left...
But here's the thing. Jake doesn't understand that you can't be part of a fight for democracy if you don't understand law and the Constitution. You can't just, spin opinion without having your opinion connected to authority. And in this case, the authority is the Constitution. And that means you have to interpret it and understand it. And there is one section in the Constitution that is the police section, which is Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. That is put there designed to be able to police government from insurrectionists, rebellionists, and insurrectionists. And when the Supreme Court ruled in Trump v. Anderson, they confused the nation. And those who don't have law degrees, and we're talking about all these social media influencers now, they all threw up their hands and gave up because they didn't understand the ruling that came out of the Supreme Court. And it was intentionally written to befuddle, people. But all the Supreme Court said was very simple. A state can't do this for a federal candidate. A state would need legislation to do this for a federal candidate, and only Congress can create that legislation. But see, saying those two things in the same order means everybody thought that Section 3 of the 14th Amendment can't work at all without legislation. But then they said at the same time that Congress holds that enforcement. And they spoke specifically to the final sentence. There's only two sentences in Section 3, 14th Amendment. Spoke to the final sentence where it says Congress has the power to relieve a disability. Well, here's the thing. And they also said that Section 3, unlike other provisions of the 14th Amendment, is conduct driven. And if you do the deed, an automatic bar to office attaches. Well, see, people who aren't lawyers don't know how to expand on what that actually said. What that actually says is anything you do that violates your oath of office and or the Constitution in a rebellious way that you intentionally do gets you fired. You are fired. But then they also said, and this is true, you get away with it unless Congress brings private legislation to remove you. And that private legislation is very simple. Identify the conduct. Identify what part of the Constitution or what criminal law, actually it's congressional law, was violated. And you point to the public record which proves that it was violated. And then you put it to a vote. You file a simple resolution to put it to a vote before Congress. If you can't get 2/3 of the members to excuse your conduct, you're fired. You have to vacate your office. But you have to understand something. Congressional people are not lawyers by and large. And those that are not constitutional lawyers. They're normally people who don't want to be lawyers. It's easier to simply get a job for $175,000 a year where you don't have to really do anything but make snide and snarky comments at each other and speeches. And as long as you can make the constituents think you're doing their job, the job for them, representing them, you'll keep your seat. There is no term limit on the House, although you have to run every 2 years. There's no term limit on the Senate, although you have to run every 6 years. There is a term limit on the presidency. So who wants to be the president when you can only have a total of 8 years and you're out? Now, here's the problem. They don't know what they're doing. They take an oath to support and defend the Constitution, but they don't know what they're supporting and defending. And when there is something done wrong, which would be a Section 3 of the 14th Amendment violation, rather than, file a complaint and bring it to the floor as a resolution to get that person thrown out of Congress, they just make a speech about it. As though, some kind of righteous indignation is supposed to correct the wrong. Well, that's gone on for years. And this is what we have today. Nobody cares about the speech. Nobody cares. You can try all your righteous indignation that you want, and the Republicans aren't going to give a damn. Very simple. They're not going to care. So, listen to Jake a little further.
They're getting annihilated. they're getting crushed. Brian Tyler Cohen is great. He's got 3.7 million subscribers on YouTube. David Pakman is good. 2.8 million subscribers on YouTube.
Neither one is
I
great.
think one of the most well-known left-leaning political commentators is Destiny. He's at 842,000 subscribers, but he's big on Twitch. And this isn't how it should be, guys. Destiny, prior to becoming a gamer influencer, was like a cook at a casino restaurant.
And that right there is telling. These people have no education, no idea what they're preaching, no idea what they're talking about. And they preach into the ether of YouTube as though their followers are supposed to do something. They're like sheep. They're not going to do anything. They don't know anything to do. If these influencers told them what to do, they do it. You know, Jessica Denson's another one. Legion Miller. You know, I think I'll put in the clip from UNFTR, which is Unf the Republic. And he goes through a litany of them. And not a single one of them. Legion Miller is an attorney, but she's one of those attorneys who's not an attorney. She's not a prosecutor. She doesn't know what the hell she's talking about when it comes down to a strategy. You got Ben Meiselas. He's an attorney. The guy can't even speak. He swallows his words. He talks so fast and tries to talk so long that he chokes on his next sentence. And it's embarrassing. It's disgusting. And he's wrong. Jessica Denson and Ben Meiselas sort of had it out where he was trying to say that, you know, Jessica Denson didn't know what she was talking about. And she was trying to tell him he didn't know what he was talking about. And both of them were right. Neither one of them has touched Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. It's like the third rail of politics. Because nobody understood how it's supposed to work. Especially given what Supreme Court did in that order in Trump v. Anderson. Now, the Supreme Court actually clarified it very well. It's just that if you don't know how to read an order and read what is being said for specifically what it is, first they go through a litany of a history. Then they go through what the problem is. Then somewhere in the middle of the order, they identify what the order really says. It says, you know, we hold that states can't do this. Then they go on more and more and more to try and add in, and this is what people call dicta after that declaration, that legislation is needed and blah, 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 blah. But it's not all dicta. It is declaration when they declare what Section 3 of the 14th Amendment is, how it automatically works, how Congress has used it in the past, how Congress has jurisdiction to use it now, how Congress can use it at any time. And these are things that congressional members don't seem to read. Even those who are attorneys like Jasmine Crockett and Dan Goldman and, you know, the other ones. Even Hakeem Jeffries is supposed to be an attorney. So is Schumer. They don't act like attorneys because they're not. They're politicians. And they don't know how to read the order for what it says. They just want to get out there and make a speech. So listen to a little more of what Jake Bro has to say. Because he's right.
It's a problem. I'll mention one more. Vosh, I like his channel. He's got 514,000 subscribers. Every day he puts out a video talking about what's happening. But people on the left on social media right now are just being drowned out by right-wing influencers. I can't even call them conservatives anymore because what I grew up thinking conservatism doesn't exist anymore. So these tenant media influencers, Tim Pool and Dave Rubin, they're more influential. They're more powerful. to getting a message out and changing people's opinions than Hakeem Jeffries or Chuck Schumer. So the battle for the next 4 years is happening on social media. If you're a educated, caring, ethical person, I encourage you to start posting. If you have a PhD or you're an authority in something, get on social media and try and post one positive, constructive, helpful thing a day. Because these guys just spew hate and bile and vitriol every moment of every day to poison American society. Like, it hurts when I see that these are the most powerful and influential people on social media, and Russia was literally paying them millions of dollars to attack Ukraine and support Russia. None of these people are ethical. None of them are actually experts in anything. They just got there first. The people who got on social media and grew their audiences first now have the most say. It's a problem.
And that's where he's right. He's 100% right, is that these people who crave attention and just want to get out there and run their mouths and show their face and get in front of a camera and act like Mr. Newscaster are the problem. Here's how it would work if these people on the left had any brains. They would look at the Constitution and specifically what it says. And the preamble gives them the most ammunition, because it says, in order to promote justice, domestic tranquility, and to form a more perfect union, we the people, blah, blah, blah. Okay, if you're not doing that, you're un-American. You are acting in an unconstitutional way. And right there, you can start with shaming these people and making it clear that everything they say is just garbage. It's un-American. You don't like it here? Get out. Leave. Go move to Russia. Go move somewhere where somebody wants to hear that garbage. And then, people need to put together coalitions to get litigation started against these people, because all speech is not free speech. Hate speech is not free speech. Misnomers is not free speech. Incorrect speech is not free speech. A person who's not an attorney cannot give legal advice. That's illegal. Everything out of your mouth is not free speech. And then there's the issue of religion. Religion is a fantasy, and it should always be said as such. It is a belief. There is absolutely no proof there is anything such as a God. There is no such proof that, that belongs in government, and the Constitution says it does not. You can't let these people who are spewing Chicken Little incorrect stuff keep saying it. Then there's the other aspect of racism and oppression. That is unconstitutional and unlawful, because 18 U.S.C. 241, which originally was called the Ku Klux Klan Act, makes it unlawful for anyone to injure, oppress, threaten, or intimidate another. That collectively defines racism. If you walk around saying that stuff, you walk around promoting that stuff, you walk around trying to spread that stuff, it is unconstitutional and un-American and unlawful. Nobody's going to the courts to try and stop it. There's a famous Supreme Court case where it says you cannot scream fire in a crowded theater. and cause a stampede where people are going to get hurt. Well, it's the same concept. All speech is not free speech. And until people realize that, until they get up underneath the law, it's just a he said, she said. It's just an argument back and forth, back and forth. And then the Democrats do ridiculous things like they keep pushing this LGBTQ stuff. Well, let's just be blunt. The human race is defined by a male and a female. It just is. There are certain societal, social norms that a society lives on, especially if you're going to say there's a religion involved. Then LGBTQ is the aberrant piece of society on an issue you will never win on with much of the population. Yet they keep pushing it. It's in TV. It's in the public. Many people don't want to see that in TV. They don't want to see that in storylines of their favorite series. They don't want to see that stuff. Is anybody listening? The Democrats are really effing stupid to think, oh, let's just keep poking the bear and somehow we're going to win, when the crazy people are the ones who are more populous than the intelligent people. So let's finish up here with what Jake is talking about.
Patient Zero, Typhoid Mary, whatever you want to say, it's Elon Musk. This guy was kind of a normal, interesting businessman up until COVID. He then lost his mind and is now a genuine Bond supervillain, trying to bring down every democratic government in the world. And what is really happening with Elon is people who support Trump and people who support Elon, they just log into Twitter every day to get their software update. All of these people who support Trump and Elon Musk, when they talk to me, say the exact same thing. You can only be saying the exact same thing. Jake, you have TDS. Jake, you have Trump derangement syndrome. Why is it that thousands of people are saying the exact same things to me? And it's because they're getting their information from the exact same people who spew bile and hate every moment of every day. I just saw a fantastic video from the YouTube channel Wisecrack titled Capitalism is Over. I'll link this video down below, but it does a good job kind of exposing Elon Musk's thinking with the introduction of techno-feudalism. The people who are going to be the most powerful in the future going forward are not presidents of countries. They're the CEOs of these digital landscapes. The people who own YouTube, the people who own Twitter, the people who own Facebook, they're feudal lords in which everyone who logs into their device every day is basically surrendering their identity to the algorithms, to these tech overlords. And the only thing that can stop these tech overlords is governments with regulation. So these techno-fascists are trying to destroy governments first. Now, this is, in my opinion, kind of bizarre because YouTube is banned in Russia and it's banned in China. Twitter is banned in Russia and China, but Elon
And you're welcome to go listen to his whole February Q&A. And you can see that's about 20 minutes and whatever part of it that has played here of a 1 hour long Q&A. The bottom line is very, very simple. the technocrat issue is today's transistor radio. There was a time when people used to bebop around everywhere they went with a transistor radio in their hand up to their ear listening to the radio. And today it's worse because it is in a transistor radio is the cell phone, where the internet can come from everywhere. And anybody can get on the internet and manipulate. And, you know, we aren't looking at science, but scientists have discovered that there is a gene they have labeled WTF1. It's like funny. What the F1? It is the gullibility gene. It's highly prevalent in females. It's in a lot of men. And then there's the MAOA gene, which is the aggression gene in men. In females, it actually works the opposite. It makes them soft. But genetically speaking, these are genes that are populous among Caucasians with a high degree of Neanderthal DNA. Now, you don't realize that, the Neanderthal never went extinct. They just interbred with the Caucasians and to some degree the Romans, but most Romans wouldn't touch them. The Romans called them beasts. And many people of color, the Africans and the Asians, they don't have Neanderthal DNA. Neanderthal DNA is dumb DNA. You're just stupid. And America was populated by emptying the jails of England and Europe. And what were the jails full of? Pretty much Neanderthal DNA'd people who were thieves because they were too stupid to do things correctly. So they were always trying to steal something. And now you look at today's Congress. And the Republicans, well, they are doing some of the dumbest crap you ever can see. Now, here's the problem. You can't make these people take DNA tests. Because if you could, you'd find out that compared to others, they have a lot of Neanderthal DNA. It's pretty easy to see. There's a program called Face2Gene. It's just like Down syndrome is easy to recognize. You can look at people who have Neanderthal DNA. They have bumps over their eyes. They have slanted back foreheads. They have smaller heads than people who are modern anatomical humans. People who have a large forehead, large cranial capacity, those are more like the modern anatomical humans. Those were the people who were known as the Romans. They came out of the Mesopotamian region for whatever reason that somehow they just popped up there. Now that's history goes way back, and you have to study a whole lot of ancient history to understand it goes back to the Egyptians. And the Egyptians such as King Tut, there's an argument whether they were 100% human or not. They had long elongated heads, and they tried to intermarry in their own family, and pretty much that's what killed them. Because they didn't want to marry with the beasts of the planet. That's a thing up for this debate and discussion. But the bottom line is, these people here in America who became Southerners were the Neanderthals. They were shipped here, came here as indentured servants, whereas the people who landed in the North were the original religious persecution people fleeing England and France and Europe and everywhere else. The bottom line is very simple. Intellect is polluted by constant inbreeding. And since the Caucasian-based Americans wouldn't breed with the Indians or the African Americans, they kept interbreeding among themselves. And you have to understand, some of these people, would never leave a 20-mile radius of where they grew up. They were intermarrying with their own genetic cousins. There is a video called The Eugenics Crusade. It's available on YouTube. And it talks about how so much of America is just dumb. And the reason for that is, when you intermarry, that's what happens. The isthmus, the finger of Wisconsin, is full of people like that, who have been intermarrying up there. And there's a lot of genetic problems and Down syndrome and all kinds of other issues because that finger sticks out between Green Bay and Lake Michigan. And those people don't have anywhere to go. They end up intermarrying and interbreeding. And they're stupid. And much of Wisconsin is kind of that way. Those who go down around the Green Bay and have populated much of upper Wisconsin are that way. Now, it's pretty simple. But nobody looks at that. They don't want to look at history. But Jake has hit the finger, put the finger right on it. He's hit the nail on the head. The problem today is these influencers who have discovered that they can influence other people very easily and get them to follow them. And what makes it worse is that YouTube promotes it by paying them for how many people they can attract to show ads to. And so these people put out content as often as possible just to keep that ad money coming in. And they don't really care that it is any type of quality content. Brian Tyler Cohen is not that great. None of them are that great. So this is Michael Steele being interviewed by Miller. There's the title, We Warned America. This is an older podcast. It was posted on February 6th. I mean, not that old, but comparatively speaking today. And there's a URL up the top. You can stop at the ampersand T equals 550 to see the whole thing. What Steele is saying is basically the sentiment of the entire country now. Pull your head out your butt and do something. Wake up and use the system. He doesn't call out Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. But that is the system. That is the police section of the Constitution. Why the Democrats have got their fingers up their butt is, he says near the end, either him or Tim Miller says near the end, that they're scared. Michael Steele says, scared of what? He's not thinking that, the reality is many of Trump's supporters are just crazy. they'll go out there and think they're doing the right thing and try and kill someone. So let's listen to what he's got to say here.
We'll cut a deal. Like that's what the Hill guys were saying, the reporters were saying, and I'm going, what in the fuck are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? Like, there's no deal. There's no deal. You guys do, like, make them do it. Make them govern. Like, there's no deal to be made. They're shutting down parts of the government illegally right now and blocking payments to Lutheran services. And you're like, I'm going to work with them on a border security plus fire relief deal? No, F that. And we're starting to see the tone change on that from the Democrats. News out this morning that the Kash Patel hearing is being delayed because of new information that's been coming out about what the ways they're trying to weaponize the FBI. So maybe they're starting to get it a little bit, Michael. I don't know.
I don't know. I live in the world, Tim. My political experience that I learned many years ago from the likes of Marion Barry and Joey Eldell and others here growing up in Washington, D.C. is words are meaningless. Dude, show me what you got. Show me what you got. Because I can tell you anything, but if I'm gonna, smack you upside the head after the conversation, that tells me everything, right? So
this is where it has to be said. This is why America is sick and tired of Democrats and their speeches. Jamie Raskin and his speeches. Hakeem Jeffries and his speeches. None of it is action or actionable. None of it is a plan. They need to acknowledge how they screwed up.
We can, maybe we can do this or do that. Just do it. Don't telegraph it. Don't talk about it. Just do it. Look, Tim, this is where I come from. For 18 months, Joe Manchin tied up the Biden administration over the filibuster and a whole host of other bullshit. Wouldn't let this bill go through, held up that. Tommy Tuberville, perhaps the dumbest member of the United States Senate, held up over 200 DOD appointments, generals, people we needed out in the field for how long? By himself. And we got Democrats sitting here trying to figure out, I don't know what we can do to stop Kash Patel or Tulsi Gabbard's appointment. Yes, you do. So don't talk to me about how bad it is. We know how bad it is. Damn it, do something. Even if you slow the roll at the end, if the end outcome is yes, they get through, at least you slow the roll of the process and you let them put.
And this is where nobody looks at the obvious elephant in the room. Section 3 of the 14th Amendment is prospective as well as prospective, as well as perspective. If someone who's taken an oath to support and defend the Constitution has something in their past that indicates that they have violated or rebelled against the Constitution of the United States, violated a congressional law, or is in general insurrection, seditious conspiracy to destroy the government, that right there is a showstopper. The Democrats could call for a vote on a Section 3 of the 14th Amendment bar to office. You can stop them from taking office and being confirmed, because there is an oath that goes along with it. I'm not so sure they really get it, because the Democrats do seem to be really dumb. But, this is on the flip side. Let's assume they do know.
Down the marker that this appointment is an abomination. It is bad for the country. We know what Kash Patel is going to do at the FBI. Why do we know that? Because he told us, not once, but over a 10-year period.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, Trump is the king of delay. Use the same thing. Look,
It's the same
I said it was the longest 2 weeks ever, but there's only 102 weeks left till they could actually take over the speakership and get some power.
he's not counting. He's not counting.
Yeah, right, but I'm just saying that Kash Patel can do a lot less damage in 96 weeks than he can do in 101 weeks. You know, honestly, that it does take time to get gum up the works. All right, there's a story related to this. We got to get into all of it. The Elon news. I could really turn this into an Elon podcast, like they're doing. I don't understand the guy. He tweeted 200 times yesterday. He's running 3 companies, and he's tearing apart the entire federal government. There's so many stories about him. It's taking over my entire outline. But I want to get to a couple of stories. But there was one thing that you tweeted about that I think kind of frames this conversation here, and that is this: there was a former NOAA official said this. The strategy here is, well, we're just going to do it and dare somebody to stop us, and by the time they stop us, we'll have destroyed it. And that, to me, is the most succinct summation of all this Elon stuff we're about to get into. But do you have any thoughts on that thing?
Tim, that is exactly what the play is. It has always been the play. They couldn't get it in gear in the last term. They had 4 years to sit down and figure out what the mechanisms were. I participated in a number of efforts to sort of war game their strategies during that time and what it potentially would look like. So I'm not surprised at this because along with a number of other folks, we looked at, okay, if Trump comes back, what does he do? And this is exactly what we figured he would do. The problem is that those other institutional responses from the United States Congress to the individual agencies has not played out the way we thought they would, that there would be a more aggressive response to this fact. This fundamentally is the play. We're just going to do it. And I've said this over the years about Donald Trump. Is something I learned about him for the first time I worked with him back in 2013. He will always do what he wants to do until you stop him. It's not complicated.
And that's what he's been like since a child. He's been completely uncontrollable, which is why he had to be sent off to military boarding school. They would tell him no. He would do it anyway. And this is a sign of a poorly developed or poorly assembled brain. And, you know, it's like the stove is hot, don't touch it. And he put his hand on it anyway. So these kinds of people have no place in leadership or in government. You know, if he were in law school, and if he were an attorney, had made it through law school, he would have been disbarred by now, because he's one of those people who would never have followed the law. And this is why we should not allow people without law degrees and licenses to practice to occupy the White House or any seat in Congress. So listen to Michael a few more bit here. Now, Michael is an attorney. Tim Miller is not. Now, I'm not a fan of Tim Miller. Tim Miller is one of the, the gay trio over there at the Bulwark. And he sort of thinks that way. His brain is not strategic. And Michael Steele is.
It's not complicated. And the reason he does it, Tim, because he doesn't believe you can stop him. And so that's the arrogance that he brings to this. But that arrogance has got to be met with an equal arrogance, which is why I love the president of Mexico. Because she was like, all right, bitch, bring it on. You want to put tariffs on me? Cool. Because Donald Trump didn't think Canada and Mexico would respond the way they did. Because what did he say when he put out that executive order talking about the tariffs? I dare you. And they were like, okay. And to be honest, I think Canada kind of followed the lead of Mexico because she wasn't playing.
Yeah.
She wasn't playing. So that at the core of this is exactly that. We're going to do it until you stop us. And by the time you get to stopping us, we will have already messed it up so badly. Right?
Yeah, and I hate to leave this on the federal workers, but in a lot of places it's gonna folks are gonna need to stand up. And we talked to I said to Ann about it on Tuesday, but look, it's there's this post article this morning. This time the resistance is unfolding in the courts rather than the streets. You have FBI agents suing over Trump's plan to target the agents that investigated the insurrection. The unions have asked a judge to block the DOJ efforts from accessing personal information. And there have been a couple other our friends of Protect Democracy and others are working on this. Again, it's a delay rather than a stop tactic, but the combination of the courts, but publicly speaking out is going to have to be what this comes to. And I do think that comes with a little bit of fear for some people, but giving tangible examples of damage being done.
Right? What are you afraid of if you're already losing your job?
Yeah.
If the reality of it is lawsuits are not visuals. Right? I can't see your lawsuit. I'm not in court. I don't want to be in court. But when your ass is standing outside of the FBI building, or you've got federal workers who are protesting in local offices, or trying to get into a building that they work in, physically involving themselves in trying to get the nation's attention on what's happening to them. That's an important visual. The next visual is going to come at a very, very profoundly personal level. When your ass tries to access government services that you need,
and they're gone.
Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, Texas, etc.
And they're gone.
Virginia, there was already some shutting down of community health centers because
So let's stop right there. You're welcome to go watch the whole thing. In the end, this is about the resolution to call for the disability vote to remove Trump and his administration. Trump and his administration. Be clear, as Michael Steele says, have a moment of clarity. Impeachment is ridiculous. You can't impeach an illegitimate president. He has to be removed. And the proper form to do it is quo warranto. However, the courts don't need to be involved because the Supreme Court has already said the courts don't have jurisdiction. Congress has jurisdiction. Congress has jurisdiction to remove its own members as well as remove the president. The popular way is impeachment, but the other route is when you are so stupid that you have violated Section 3 of the 14th Amendment and you fire yourself from office. Congress just needs to grow a pair, make the vote, as long as not 147, not more than 146 Democrats agree to keep Trump, he's gone. Because he won't reach a 2/3 majority to remove the disability which now bars him from office. So, like and subscribe, spread the video around. I don't have much to say that these other people aren't already saying. It's just a form of legitimacy. So, like the video, subscribe. The comments are turned off. The comments are turned off intentionally because most people just have useless comments. Like, yeah, do this, yeah, impeach him, yeah, jail him, yeah. You know, if you don't have something meaningful to add to the plan, sorry, I got other things to do. I don't need to hear it. But kind of a flippant way to say, you know, like and subscribe and spread around. This is the solution.